ago.
Good.
It's a great day.
Good to hear. So this is not your first time. In fact, this may be your third or fourth time.
This is only my second time.
I sort of, I think you have, I thought at least you have three, but I may be wrong. I have the COVID brain now, so I don't remember everything.
It's okay. We see each other plenty of times.
Yes. Didn't you do one group session with all of us? I thought you were on that one with all the client managers.
No, I don't recall. Maybe I'm forgetting.
So now we are going to talk about payment posting and Gateway EDI, our clearinghouse overview. Now, when I was in our Turkey office and kind of going through some training with our staff, one of the things that they actually told me that they do benefit from these YouTube sessions, even though we were not going into a lot of details. So this was a couple of weeks ago when after I come back, I realized that maybe we can actually make it a little bit more specific so then we can actually help them to better understand. This would be kind of like a supplement support that they can get from us. So this becomes a better, almost like not better, but in a way that it makes us even more efficient, completing or complementing the training that we are already providing. Sometimes when we repeat certain things several times, people do pick up on some of these, and in some cases, our clients are also watching these, and I know that they do pick up stuff from what we have. So I'm going to actually have you to be able to share your screen, and so that you can do your technical part. Okay, you are on, so you should be able to share your screen.
Sharing now. Can everybody see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will get into the Gateway EDI portion, but let's start with the core responsibilities of our department. And before we begin that, I'd like to say that our department is very much tied into the process, and this entire workflow is a system, and everything starts at the provider's office. And we'll go into that in more detail in a few slides. On the screen now are 5 things that our team is very much responsible for on a daily basis. And when somebody clocks in, their first task is to actually retrieve documents from a bank portal. We need to save those files because we often go back to them to reference them. So what that includes are patient payments, insurance EOBs, and even important insurance correspondences that we'll need to forward to other parts of our billing teams, like the collection team, the claims department, credentialing, and of course the AR department. So the second thing here is bank reconciliation. It's one of the top priority workflows that we have, especially for the clients that buy into this workflow, because it does we would need some kind of security level to obtain banking information. At times we would need to see what goes into the checking account of these providers, and we'll go into that more. And the next 2 are our main workflows, which are electronic posting and manual posting. It's very straightforward what the meaning is, and we'll go into that again. And the last bullet point on here are service requests, which are often the provider's office or the billing department communicating with our employees. And I'm just going to go into the next slide. What's reconciliation? I did touch upon this just a few moments ago. So the main goal for this workflow is for us to see what the insurances are sending to our providers. And then when we have that information, we have to make sure that whatever money they have is in their practice management systems. This way, it's sort of like a different level of accounting, but if we work on this daily, money is not missing, and we have a constant data to reference, what's the level of the AR like, how much revenue is coming in for these providers. Again, this requires clearance from our providers, and I would wish that everybody sign up for it because it's a very useful tool as far as making sure everything is great. And I'm going to get into this later, but a lot of what we do is just verification. So making sure daily that, Medicare is going and paying your claims, Blue Cross is paying your claims is very important to the health of your practice. Okay, to the bottom, we have some more bullet points, right? This is just talking about some of the tools and some of the reports that we'll have for you. I did touch up on making sure that every deposit is posted, but what this also helps us in is if we don't have electronic remits and the payments are coming into the provider's account, we can initiate an ERA enrollment in that way. But I can also get into that a little bit later. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, starting with the electronic workflow. Again, this is one of the two main workflows that I mentioned earlier. Everything starts at the doctor's office. All the insurance IDs need to be entered correctly. All the notes need to be documented, and our claims team will have to make sure that the claim files are verified and correct. Now, with the electronic workflow, the most important thing in the yellow box to the bottom left is that the payer and our clearinghouse, TriZetto Provider Solutions, must have an established connection. And there are several ways to do that. Most of the time, it's very easy to send out some kind of ERA form or claim form. A lot of the time, which I'll discuss again in the next slides, we'll need to have our own portal login and have a provider verification process. But once all of that is established, we're in good shape because the payer will send the claim files or the ERA files back to our clearinghouse. And when all the documentation is correct from the provider's office, that will result in an ERA. An ERA stands for Electronic Remittance Advice, and I have a slide for that as well. Are you able to see the Zoom box? Let me move this over. Okay.
We can see the full screen.
Okay, great. I'm going to minimize mine then. I apologize. Okay, so when we process the ERAs, there's two branches that will come from that. And up top is if there's a patient responsibility, we'll send the patient a statement. And the branch on the bottom, if there's any denials, anything that needs to be reviewed and sent back to the insurances, we'll go to our AR billing team. And they will review that on their own workflow through the reimbursement manager. Okay. So more into electronic posting. Again, it stands for Electronic Remittance Advice. So we received that through our clearinghouse, TriZetto Provider Solutions. A lot of payers will refer to TriZetto Provider Solutions as the EDI, which is the electronic data interchange on the second bullet down. This will also provide denials for our accounts receivable team to work, like I just mentioned. Some of the tools that we use using the electronic posting, not only processing payments, but will enter zero payments into the account. So we'll know when we look at the ledger that the insurance company may not have paid that claim. Or in this case, on this bullet case, if there's a zero pay, which is just a deductible, it needs to go to the patient, it's a co-insurance or a copay, the zero amount will also be entered in the ledger. And some of the things that we have from the ERAs is also the coordination of benefits information, which is essential if we're sending the claim to the secondary payment payer. And in the last few years, we've been working on having all of our providers sign up for online patient payments where the patient will pay via credit card on a website, and that also comes back to us. We have a way of getting electronic remits for patient payments. Okay, and some of the things that we use to manage this is the last bullet here, the 7-day posting report. So it's a very surface level report that everyone in our department will review. We have a list of all of our queues, and we just take a look at that and see, is this client being worked? Very simple, very simple. So for the manual posting, which is our second largest workflow, this is for claims coming back to us that, it's on the yellow box down here, do not have a remittance connection. So the electronic posting workflow, we'll come back to that, right? The electronic posting workflow will have a connection with the payer and the clearinghouse. So in this scenario, they do not. So whether it's a small insurance, a workers' compensation claim, or a patient payment, everything that I just mentioned, those three, will go into the manual posting workflow. Okay, so how does this come back? The claim, because it's possible that we have a claim established, a claims enrollment established with our clearinghouse. It will get a report that says it's accepted, right? The claim is accepted by the insurance, and we will receive the claim back different ways. It can be paper, it can be via fax, or we don't get any information at all. And our team is responsible for going into those different provider portals that I mentioned earlier. And I'll show you some examples of that soon. We take that data, archive it, and then work it that way. It's a much slower process, which over the years, we've been working very hard to make sure all the major payers were established with our clearinghouse first, and then we take all the smaller insurances and enroll them. And then even the patient payments, I'm going to go back to the electronic patient payments. We've had many efforts, many great efforts to make sure that that is established, because it's not only convenient for our team. Personally, I would like to go to a provider's office where I can go online and pay my bill. I don't want to have stuff. I don't want mail. I don't want recycling. It's just, it'll get cluttered. So electronic, I'm not trying to make manual posting workflow the bad guy of this slide, but this is the, this catches the rest of the things that are not electronic. And then let's go to the last leg of this slide. Once we post everything manually, it's the same workflow. If the patient has patient responsibility, we'll prepare the statements and mail it out to the patients. And if anything is denied at all, we have a different queue that we send it to the AR billing team from there. Okay. Here we go. More into manual posting, and I might overlap some things. Oops, I apologize for that. So the first and most important thing for manual posting, this is the most efficient way we can capture anything that's not an ERA, the electronic lockbox. And more importantly, electronic lockboxes that archive the images for our providers. So if a provider has an electronic lockbox, they will usually have a PO box set up with the payers, or they'll have a PO box set up in their statements. And let's say an insurance receives a claim, they'll see that the provider has a PO box on file and send the EOB back to that address. And this service is offered by banks. So what the banks will do is take all of the different information, the different images, and they'll have it ready for us in their web portal. So
so the
question?
process that Jared, the process that you went through, that was one of my first responsibilities in back in year 2000. Payment posting used to be one of the most challenging because electronic posting was not available. So every check needed to be entered manually with the DOS-based system. So Sean is a little bit, because he's in my office, so although he's not on the camera right now, I always make reference to their ages. So I don't know if they know what DOS-based system is.
No, I don't know. I've heard of it, but I haven't had the pleasure of working in it.
It's a very painful system. So, and I was one of the survivors of that system. So that used to be extremely difficult. But now we have all the, we have all the technology available to us, but there's still some manual work that's out there that we still have to do. I think one thing that you mentioned, for our patients to take advantage of the electronic payments, that's something that we definitely want our patients to use, because that makes it clean. There's no paper trail that you don't have to worry about making, like trying to prove the payment, because it's electronically done. So now going from that payment posting electronic and manual versus electronic, so we also have the clearinghouse for our EDI transactions. So I know you're going to talk about that as well. So let's cover that, and then I have some other questions.
All right.
For that.
Let me prepare that portion. Let's skip right along. Okay, are you still able to see my screen, or shall I share it?
I will stop your sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One moment, please.
You just need to reshare your PowerPoint.
Okay, got it. Okay. The TriZetto Provider Solutions. This is our main hub. If we're sending a claim, we have to use this. If we're receiving anything electronically, we have to use this, okay? It all starts in the STEM and TPS enrollments portals. And what this does is it's a really good tool that TriZetto provides myself, our department. And again, this starts in STEM, because if we need to send out anything, this is our hub. So we can't send a claim out. We can't send a clean claim out unless the claims enrollment is completed. And that's the 837 file. And we can't receive an ERA file. That's the 835 file unless the ERAs are done. Okay, so what they do for us is, the enrollment is initiated in this portal, and they'll come back and send us notification that we prepared these documents for you to complete. And most of the time, it just takes an electronic signature for us. If not, they'll guide us step by step on what website we need to go to, what documents we'll have. And we're also provided with several representatives that are always up to date on their knowledge with these different payers. So for me, a lot of the learning process personally have come from these provider representatives that's working at TriZetto. So I want to thank them. I don't know if any of them are watching right now, but the enrollment process has been ongoing. And before, there weren't a lot of provider verification processes, but now we have different portals like Availity and Change Healthcare and Optum for United Healthcare. And what TriZetto Provider Solutions does is, again, give us detailed information on how to get that done. Now, usually when we initiate the enrollment, we also have to go back with the provider's office. So this takes a lot of communication between us, the payer, Trizetto, and our office managers. So sometimes we'll need an updated W-9. We'll need a copy of their voided check and the back copy of it. And sometimes for some enrollments, the payer or the provider portal will call the physical location and confirm with our providers, hey, we have an ERA enrollment for you initiated by John Rocco. Is this correct? Can you confirm your provider ID, your tax ID, etc.? So some of those enrollments do take some time, and it takes a lot of coordinated effort from all three parties. And the third bullet is the detailed provider analysis. So this is a great tool that our department uses because it tells us how many claims came out from Blue Cross, from Medicare, from Aetna, how many of them were paper and how much, which payers are coming back as an ERA, and which claims are getting rejected. It's a very useful tool, especially when you're a new provider that's not established. If you're coming over to SPM and you're billing with United Medical, this will give you an up-to-date analysis of how your claims are doing. And then on the last bullet, this also communicates any payer delays. What does that entail? We'll often get messages on our home screen. Medicare from this state is experiencing delays, or Blue Cross of whatever state is going to be down for maintenance on this day, on this holiday. We're not processing any claims because our offices are closed. All of those different communications are very good, useful tools in case we get a payment from an insurance company and we don't see it in our portal. This goes back to bookkeeping because, any delays that we see from the bank that's not going into our portal is immediately a flag for our department. And then we'll send the different transaction information to our representative and say, hey, we haven't got this claim in, or this payer stopped coming in. We haven't received them in this long, X amount of days, X amount of weeks. And then the representative will come back to us and say, hey, your ERA enrollment might be due to renew, or they'll come back and say, hey, did you see that message that was in our home screen? They're experiencing delays in all across the board or in this specific state. So you'll just need to hold on or pull the EOB from the website. Hey, Kemal, I think you're muted.
So, I never mute myself, and I'm not used to not.
I know, I'm a little surprised.
So I know you have reporting related to the EDI. So if we can kind of talk about those while the video is running on the bottom of the screen. So there are some end of month reports, but how are you guys utilizing those reports for day-to-day and the weekly and maybe before the end of the month?
Sure. Well, we have several reports. Actually, I have a slide on that. But for EDI, the main thing that we look at with EDI is to see what's the percentage rate for these clients, and then we'll look at what's the percentage rate for these states. And those are two, one is generic and then one gets into detail, right? So the main thing that we look at is what's the average for Delaware? Because all of our providers most of our providers are in the tri-state area, with Delaware being the main place. Delaware sets the benchmark for our clients. Let's say we totaled a certain amount for electronic, right? We'll compare our total amount for electronic with the rest of our clients, and we'll say, I'm not going to give a specific client out, for example, but maybe one client is 3, 4,
You can use United
5%.
Medical Clinic as an example, since
Yes, United Medical Clinic, they're always at 6% or lower. You know, maybe a couple months here and there they'll be increased, but 6% manual percentage for United Medical Clinic is the gold standard. And I know we have new providers joining us every year, and no matter what, UMC is actually sometimes they're the test. We usually use it as a test practice because, you know, if something isn't enrolling for United Medical, then we're gonna have problems with the rest of our providers. Yes.
For employees and clients and whoever is listening. So part of the reason we have these benchmarks and the reporting is because we want to make sure that there's a good checks and balance in place. So without the checks and balance, what we do is not going to be safe. And I think one thing that Gateway EDI provides for us is safety net reports that we are able to actually run those reports if the claim went and then nothing came back, or the no follow-up from our side. Any of those will be able to capture those with the safety net reports. But our internal reporting, which you know, Jared, you've been working with me for a long time, which you do probably by now. You have my discipline and culture of business. So maintenance reporting or maintenance meetings that I call them, these are important meetings because that's, as much as they can be in some days, in some months can be boring, they are the one that keeps us in business because things are, the urgency is not going to be there until it's urgent. So until something goes bad. So the only way that you can find out before it becomes a bigger crisis, if you have a proper regular routine reporting. Otherwise, we'll be always in trouble with these processes that we have in place. Now, Jared, you also you're part of our department meetings, and actually, you do have for whatever reason it sticks to you, so that you are the person who's taking the minutes. That actually tells people that everything that we do in the process needs to be documented properly. So that's you know, all these benchmarks and reportings, we may have them in place, but it's not going to be it's not going to make any sense if we don't have a good documentation of the work that we do, right?
That's correct. Documentation and verification is the most important part of our work. You know, we can't do anything without making sure it's correct. It's all about setting the benchmark. If you're not double checking, then it's going to come back, and then you're just going to create extra work for yourself. And without benchmarks, then how do you know if you've improved or got worse over time, you know?
Absolutely. Now, I think we have a good summary of both of these topics. So I think you did excellent, and thank you for doing that, and thank you for joining. We want to make sure that if this is not the actual training by any means, but this is a supplement or supporting maybe another tool for people to can actually listen and learn, right? So, but everything else is also available. Our PowerPoint is available for those who may want to see, and then just maybe go over that specifically so they can let us know. Anything you would like to add before we close your session?
Yes, it's my pleasure to talk about this. I've been in this department for 9 years. So what I would like to see is more employees joining my educational seminar that I host with Dora Beasley. We have it every quarter. Please join. It's free. And I look forward to seeing everyone.
Right?
Come again?
We call them educational seminars now, but they used to be lunch and learn before the pandemic.
Yes, before the pandemic.
And I know you guys do a lot of work for those, and everyone should take advantage of it, because payment posting is, when I was doing it, I enjoyed it a lot, but not everyone maybe understands how important it is. It can mess up everything. It can make everything much better. So without a proper posting, things are not going to be good for our and also for patients, because sometimes they don't understand why they're getting a bill, and that problem comes from maybe a simple posting error, and that's why we have these systems in place so that we can actually reduce these errors and omissions, so that we can provide a better service for clients and for the patients. Well, Gerard, thank you so much again for joining us.